Welcome to my studio. It's a fairly typical jeweler's or metalsmith studio. This happens to be a freestanding building, 30 by 12 feet. It's a converted garage. We'll just take you on a quick whirlwind tour of the studio, point out some of the attractions. We'll do a quick pan around for you just so you can get a general lay of the land. And you can see where we've been and what we're going to be seeing. Here we go, coming around full circle. And here we are at the door again. Over here we have a sink area with an ultrasonic cleaner for cleaning the dirt and grime off of objects before they're soldered. Another type of cleaner called a steam cleaner, very common in most jewelry studios. Consists of a boiler, and then the steam is generated out through that nozzle. Some other dirty areas, the sandblaster, little grinders. A significant piece of equipment in any metal studio is the buffing machine, 2 speeds. Buffs and polishes scratches out. Some more roughing out tools. These are a combination sander grinder. This is a shear, a large long handle, gives you a lot of leverage. Here's the jaws of the shear, cutting large stock. Here's a piece of heavy stock that's been already cut. Coming back to here is one of my most valued pieces of equipment. This is my rolling mill. This is designed for changing the gauges of metal, whether that be sheet or wire, or actually it's used in production of metal stock. What I do is I'll pour up an ingot, which I'll show you in a bit, and then that loaf-shaped ingot is processed in the mill. Wire is processed in these squared-off wire rollers, which are adjustable with that wheel. They move away from each other. And flat stock is processed in these flat rolls, which are adjustable by that wheel. Whole deal is turned with the crank, and I can make sheet, wire, plate, and rod stock. It's also a really valuable tool. Textures into the metal through those flat rolls. You can metals against something harder. For instance, in this case, I've sandwiched a soft piece of brass against this old stainless window screen. So you can kind of see it rolls in the window screen pattern, and that was done right in these rolls here. So moving along, we have a utility table, old butcher block. These tools are for forming large rings of metal. This is actually a silversmithing stake, and here's an old piece I was working on. It started out as a flat disc of metal that was then formed over this series of stakes, and there's a whole bunch of different ones of these. Anvils, where the forging operations are done. Here's a typical forming or forging hammer, some bronze stock, another anvil. Here we have a vise. You can kind of see a specialized tool called a sinusoidal stake. We have a layout table where I do most of my designing. It's an old oak desk. I meet clients, customers here. This is the wax bench, the wax area. This large pot is a wax pressure pot. Wax is heated under here, in here, and melted, and compressed air drives hot wax out through this nozzle into rubber molds, which then generate waxes, which are then cast in another area into the actual silver. Let's see, we've got here, this is my soldering area. This is the area where metals are joined using solder or brazing compound. This here is a standard jeweler's torch. This is an oxygen propane torch. Right now there's only propane running through there. But if I cut in a little O2 with this knob here, you'll see that the character of that changes quite a bit. And then that comes over here, and you'd solder these two pieces of bronze together. Once the metal is soldered, it's cleaned up in a weak acid solution, which is in this crock pot. Coming around, these are pliers. You'll see this in any jeweler's or metal studio. The reason we have so many pliers is because they can all be adapted and customized. A wide range of shapes. For instance, here's a couple of interesting plier shapes for making round stock or ring-shaped stock. This is the basic fabrication bench. Over here is the flexible shaft machine. Here's the motor. Turns a cable within the sheath to this handpiece right here. This handpiece would contain Contains bits, kind of like a dental drill, and it's used for cleaning up metal, grinding, all sorts of operations. Another piece you'll find on every jeweler's bench is the bench pin. This is where we do all the sawing, filing, and sanding operations. So here's a piece of silver across here. This is a saw frame. So that little strip of metal right there, that little thread, is actually the saw blade to be used for sawing that metal. Another tool that I have in my studio that some people have is a ring bender, which is just a purely mechanical tool. I make a lot of rings out of very heavy stock, and this enables me to really bend them. The metal gets bent through that lever action. These are dapping punches, which are round punches. They're used for turning discs of metal, which are actually punched out in this disc punch. They're used in combination with the dapping block to create domes. They're hammered in there. Almost finished here. This is a draw plate, which is used for changing the dimension. Wire is pulled through the draw plate. And over here we have a place where it all starts. This is the ingot pouring bench. So it has a much larger torch, again oxygen propane. Metal is melted in this crucible. Once it's molten, it's poured into this ingot mold, and that generates an ingot. Of course, it's cool now. And this ingot, this little loaf of silver, is taken back over to the rolling mill, and then rolled down through these series of rolls, and then that stock is then fabricated into whatever I want it to be. So that concludes our tour. Thank you very much for coming. Be sure to drive safe. Have a nice day.